A, I got distracted after school with lines of kits, and so I just didn't get it up yet, or B, something technologically went wrong. But otherwise, there should be a video from every lecture that we do. Anyway, period 5, I'm starting the class with you, so you're just picking up with us. You've already collaborated in groups. Try to go and answer as many questions as possible. Kiddos, I just want to ask you a few things really quickly, just to make sure that we were reading this assignment correctly. In number 1, what words could have directed you to categories in the handbook? If you didn't know how to do this right away, that would help. What words could link to the handbook, to a section that could describe what you're supposed to do? Oh, I see hands all over the place. Yeah, go ahead. Regression. Good. Linear regression. Did we talk about linear regressions in our handbook? And everyone should say, yes. Of course we did. So then you could say, okay, if I don't remember exactly what to do, let's go find linear regression in our handbook. And as you went, or if you went and found it, it should have been in the general list category. Now, I think it was a few pages down. It was over here. Oh, here it is. Calculating regression. You should have gotten here eventually and said, oh, that's right, linreg. Stat over could have reminded you what to do. But question, before you can ever do a linear regression, just go ahead and shout it out. Not shout, maybe just talk in a respectful tone. What would you have had to do with the table that's there? Go ahead, just call it out. Enter it into your
calculator.
Yes, but where? Because some people last night, and it's not a bad thing, they're not used to their calculator, went to second graph and said, yay, table, let's go. But that's not the right place. Stat edit. Stat edit. You have to edit your lists, get the info in your lists, and then run the linear regression. And as we talked about just briefly yesterday, that's not where I wanted to go. Over here. The answer for number 1 should have looked like, what are linear regressions? Equations. The answer to number 1 should be an equation. So look at number 3 really quickly. What are you running in that one? A quadratic regression. Is it in the same menu as a linear regression?
Yeah.
Yes, with a different table, because there's a different table. But once again, what should the answer to number 3 look like? An equation. Where's the next regression on the first side? Number 5. There's another table, put it in the list, and then run another regression, but this time it says cubic. Can you find the linreg and the quadreg and the cubic? What does it say on the thing? Cubreg? Can you find them all in the same menu?
Yeah.
Yes, you can. You just need to go ahead and, oh, it actually says cubic. Okay. And you can run them. So 1 and 3 and 5, the answer was just an equation, right? Now, in number 2, I'm just trying to really quickly make sure that we understand how to read this worksheet. In number 2, where's the table? In number 1. From number 1. Oh, so when it says using the linear regression, it means use the equation that you found in number 1, right? Use the equation. Well, how do we normally use equations? How did you use them in Algebra 1? You had them, and what did you do with them? Either plug in an x, solve for, or plug in a solve for. That's what you're doing in number 2, and probably somewhat number 4, and maybe even number 6. Does that go with number 5? Now, we have to read the words carefully, because they're not just saying, hey, x is 31. Did anyone get x is 31 on 2A? How many people plugged in 2011? Ooh, we just got stuck. Remember, you gotta be real with me, so I don't know who you are. Why is x 31? Yeah.
Because 2002 is, I think, 22, so 2011.
Okay, that's one way of doing it. Because if you were up above in the list, when you wrote down 2002, you're totally right. That was 22. And so you can say between 2002 and 2011 is 9 years. 22 plus 9 is 31. Or, do you guys remember what 5 and 10 and 15 and 18 are measuring?
Years.
How many years from?
1980.
So the other way is just subtract 2011 from 1980. It's 31 years later. But both ways work. I've heard multiple people say that, oh, you were at 22, go 9 more. You're right. But you plug in the x and you get out the y. Now, what is actually a typo in my answer to 2a? Yeah. And I left it, I boxed it at one point, and I circled the thousands, but I never actually wrote it because I wanted you guys to see if if you were able to figure out the 31 and plug it in, great job, and you got an answer. But the problem is, this is wrong. The population was not 218.380. The answer was 218,380, or 218.380, write the word thousands. Pause. Where's your color pen? Go ahead and grab it out. Whatever you were able to do last night. Whatever you weren't able to do last night. Or maybe even in your group this morning. I want you to grab out your color pen. Drop pencils on the ground. We're going to have time to work in a second. So if you didn't get all of this done, don't worry. I'm not neglecting it. And I said today was a review day / question day. Okay? But drop pencils on the ground. Only color pens. Whatever you were able to do, that's great. So we talked about how each of these has to go in the list category. Lin reg is what you needed to run to get an equation, and in the next question, you're using that equation. And we just talked about 2011 was 31 years from 1980, which is why you plug in 31. We got out 218.380 when we just solved. We weren't really in our calculator. I mean, you could have typed that in your calculator, right? But we weren't doing anything in the graph or in the table or in the list. Just plug it from the home screen. But once again, this is wrong unless you put a comma and say 218,000.380, or write the word in your color pen thousands, just to remind you. Numbers are important, but you gotta keep them in Bible teachers would agree context. Is important too. Right? Cool. Letter B. Why did I say set y equal to 250 when it says population, which I made them, was 250,000? Why did I make it only 250?
Because according to the problem, you're making everything start from zero. Or you're making the start from zero.
Good. I'm making the year start from 0. So that's going to be really important when I go to apply the x, the answer down below. But actually, hold on. That's for time. That's for years. Why did I make y, or population, equal 250 and not 250,000? What does the problem say, Chris? And then really focus the graph. It's easier than that. It's easier than that. Again? Agent, sorry.
And that the population is in decimal form.
The population has decimals because the population is measured in thousands. So when I go to my equation, I see the actual population, 250,000, but I say, oh, wait, so I'm plugging in thousands. So I don't plug in 250,000 thousands. How many thousands do I plug in? 250. So then I let y equal 250, and your job, did I show the steps here? No. How do you solve for x? Algebra, right? Subtract 83.344, divide by 4.356, and you have the answer. No. You have something that's supposed to get you to the answer. Is the year 38.259 AD? No. What's the year? When does it hit? What do I do with those 38.259 years from 1980? I add, and then I round. So what is, or where, what year will I be in if I'm 38.259 years after 1980? 2018, 2019. I'm somewhere between 2018 and 2019. So I want you guys to see the math gets us here, but the final answers would be 2018 to 2019. Technically, I guess we would say 2018 because has it gotten to be 2019 yet? No. So technically, we could say it is in the year 2018, but the problem is it true on January 1st of 2018? No. It'll be somewhere in the year 2018. Without us trying to figure out what day. And then this one, you were supposed to write thousands. Does it kind of make sense, guys, where the math is important, but so is the context? So, will I give you points on the quiz, partial credit, if you could have gotten here? Definitely. Yeah, you've done a really good job of reading, interpreting, plugging in. But the problem is, can I give you full credit if you don't actually answer what the question asks? Does that make sense? Okay. Let's go ahead and keep grading. I'm not going to go in as much detail. I'm going to let you guys see. There we go. See the answers. Remember, if you have it wrong, that's okay. Write it in your colored pen in your job this weekend. Basically, your homework and studying. And hopefully at the end of class, when you have some time to work, is to figure out what went wrong. All right. So let's go ahead and grade 3 and 4. They go together. 3, plug it in your list. That should have been L1 if you were confused. That should have been L2. This is X, this is Y. Run the regression in stat over quad regression. Some of you might have accidentally done the wrong regression. Most of you guys are probably by now grading number 4. P.S. We are turning in calculated worksheet number 1 and 2 on Monday, right before the quiz. And to get full credit, I should see pencil from what you did and pen from what you graded. Now pause. Your question might be, well, what if I did everything perfect? Very few of you are going to do everything perfect on calculated worksheet number 2. But what if you did? How could you show me that you graded in class? Do what I do on your tests for long answers. If I see something good and maybe it's different than the other teachers, I put a check mark and say, good job, where do you go? Where do you get it? So what can you do to yourself on paper? Good job, where do you go? There you get it. Sound good? Then I know you're following along. But shouldn't everyone, on some assignment somewhere, maybe not these two, but calculated worksheet 2 is kind of hard. Shouldn't you have some red pens, some colored pens somewhere? Same thing for homework packets. When I come up to them, I should see pencil. I should also see them color pen. Those of you guys that got number 4 right, can you just tell me really quickly, just raise your hand, if you remember how you got 1.725 meters? I don't remember AJ.
I have 1.720.
Okay, if, something to keep in mind, if you don't round the same way I round, it's very possible you kept more or you kept less. That would change. Now, I would say for the quiz, we'll just keep rounding 3 decimal places all along and using it just for sake of simplicity. But that might be a place that your rounding was a little bit off. And then, well, did you go ahead and get it, Jacob? You got it?
I got 1.8.
Did I get 1.725? Oh, Christine. X is time, and if you plug it into my equation, do you remember if you rounded it or not? Oh, you don't think you rounded it? Maybe I did round.
It was 0.
Yeah, so I think we should stay.
Oh, this was a 0?
Yeah, after the 5 I think.
But do you remember if you rounded this equation before you plugged it? So maybe, yeah. Okay, so the 2 decimals would have thrown it a little bit off. Jacob, do you remember how you rounded? Did you keep it like this?
I was at 4.4. I don't know.
Oh, okay, so it was a little bit off there. I actually got batteries in mine. Does anybody have that equation still in their calculator? Probably not, huh? You all deleted it already? Okay. I'm going to throw it in really quickly just because I want us to be consistent, because I want you guys for the quiz not to have to be worried about what I was doing. Let me see if you guys can auditorily follow what I'm doing without seeing it. Okay? I'm in my y equals. You guys know where I am. I'm putting in this function, negative 4.676 x squared. Again, putting in to my y equals. Plus 3.758x plus 1.045. Why am I putting it in y equals? Remember that really cool function notation, y1 of, that we saw yesterday? You can do f of x from the home screen by using, where was that hidden menu? Alpha y equals. I'm going to hit the trace button, and there were all the y1, y2s, y3, y4s. I'm going to hit y1 with a parenthesis. I'm going to plug in 0.2750 parenthesis. And what I'm doing is telling my calculator, go to the y equals, go to the equation I put into the y equals, plug in 2.750 into the equation for me, 1.72. Is that what I have up there?
I can get it.
I use the rounded equation. Does that help for it on Monday?
I couldn't hear.
Huh?
I couldn't get the.
Oh, that's okay. Can I show it to you? So, I use the equation that's boxed in number 3 and I just plugged into that. And then alpha.
Oh.
See it?
Yeah.
You can put it on my desk when you're done. Okay. People with the yellow button, remember you can get to the alpha y equals by bars. Over, going over 1, hitting enter on the y bars, and then hitting enter on the function. There's your y1 if you want to access. Okay. So yeah, letter A, seconds is time. X is time. Plug in 2.750 to x. Now question, do you have to do what I did to plug it in? Or could you just type this with a parenthesis and 0.2750, square it, plus type this with parenthesis? You could just do that. It's okay. I was just letting you know what I did. That's all. That's all. Letter B. Why is x the answer and not y? It wants time, and time is a what? The x. Now hold on. They didn't give you anything to plug in, so what you guys do to find the maximum? Handbook. Handbook. Is maximum the word maximum in the handbook? Yes. What menu? Just shout it out. Good. Second trace, right? Second trace. If you graph, hey, do you see why maybe I put it in my y equals? So I could use it for that one and for that one. Graph it, find the maximum. Can your calculator find a max? Yes. And when you find a max, you had an x and you had a y. The maximum height was this. But it didn't ask for that. It asked for the time. And it doesn't tell me anything about years or anything that I have to do, like what was going on in 1 and 2. So I just say, okay, 0.402 done. Did anybody find any issues or have any issues with 0.402 being the answer to letter B? If not, we're good, we'll move on. For any deep thinkers that realize that that wasn't exactly right? Okay. If this confuses you, you can disregard it. But if you want to listen really carefully, 0.402 is not the actual answer to how high and at what time the actual object reached its maximum height. Because, do you guys see that the height actually goes above 1.8? What? The math equation doesn't perfectly match the data? What's a regression? Is it an equation that perfectly gets all the points? Or is it a general trend, and sometimes the actual data is a little messier? What I was asking for was to use the equation, get the ideal answer, and you're good, done, stop. But in all actuality, if you were like doing experiments out in the field and measuring things, that wouldn't necessarily be, even though math shows us the ideal, life is sometimes a little bit messier. And if you look at this, we don't know that this is the highest it goes. It probably went higher, or it could have gone higher, somewhere in between these two times, because these are just two little snapshots of what was going on at. But we know for sure, somewhere in this time range, it had to go a little bit higher than what the equation told us. And that has nothing to do with what you were supposed to answer on the paper. Just a few of you, if you actually looked at the table in honors, a couple kids were like, wait a minute, that's not right. And I was like, wait. So this was the answer I was looking for. The answer the equation spit out. I'm just saying that's the ideal answer, not necessarily the realistic one. You might ask, well, why aren't you doing the realistic stuff? Well, it's going to take a long time. You should take physics. Anyway, number 5. The more realistic the math gets, the harder it gets. You guys are just kind of, you've learned a lot. You're able to do a lot. but you're still kind of in the ideal situations. Number 5, check the equation real fast. If you were able to do it, you just had to put it in your lists. They tell you the x, that's L1. They tell you the y, that's L2. Quick reminder, because I think a couple of you guys were out when we did this for regressions. It's in this menu, the regression part of the handbook. You would just run number 6 instead. So on the quiz, if I ask you to do a regression, you're going to find it. You're going to round to 3 decimal places if there are that many. Then you can use it if I ask any questions. But compared to, let's see, what were the ones that asked for deeper questions? Number 2 and number 4. Is number 6 a little easier than the ones up above? Because what did it say? Just plug in that, right? That's easy to read. Now, this one was a little bit harder. Did they say y equals 10? No. So you might want to, when you color pen, make yourself a little note on number 6. When it asks for when the function will have a value, function value, that's always referring to y. Function value is always referring to y. Specifically value, but not just any value, function value. That's always referring to the y. So that's a little tricky, because it doesn't just outright say, hey, when y is 10, x is, that's algebra 1 stuff. You have to apply it. But I'm telling you, whenever it says function value, think y equals f of x. F of x is the function value when x is. How to interpret. I had a few groups say, oh, sorry, anybody else still checking? I have to erase that before I can move on. All right, number 7 and 8, do you guys see how kind of they look the same? I mean, they look similar, right? Number 7, I want to scatter plot. I want to see the regression, superimpose, graph the equation for the regression. Then you're going to use it in something. Number 8, get a table, get the equation, graph the scatter plot, superimpose, graph the regression on top of the equation, plug it in to find stuff. So I don't want to go over both of them. I am going to show you answers to both. Let's do this. If you did not get this far in the worksheet, that's totally fine. It got hard, right? If you have your phone on you, and I actually let you do this from time to time, why don't you grab it out and take a quick picture of the answers. Here's number 7. In just a second, I'll scroll it down to number 8. Here's number 7. In just a second, I'll scroll it down to number 8. If you have a friend in the class that has a phone, you don't, be like, hey, can you send it to me? You can always email me, and usually I would get it to you really quickly. The dilemma is I'm leaving on the senior retreat at 12 today. So you can still email me, and if I get a spare moment and some Wi-Fi up in the mountains, I will try to send it to you. Worst comes to worst, you'll have it by Sunday night. But if you don't have your phone in class, which is probably a wise thing, I don't want to punish you for that. Email me. Or if you can think of it today before I leave, email me. Like if you can get to your locker during nutrition, do like, do you guys have my email? Do you know my name? Some of you got it from the syllabus, and some of you were like, I don't think you actually introduced yourself. I'm sorry, I missed you, by the way. We had class for a week now. But, hi. I don't think I did. Anyway, you just said welcome to Precalc. Those kids call me Miss Dean. It's easier. When I first started teaching here, I would say, think Nike, just do it, but do it. I'm good at it. It's for Miss. At Heritage Dashboard. So, if you get to your locker nutrition, just email me real quick and say, how can I worksheet answer keys, please? Or just say keys, please, and I know what you're talking about. Alright, kiddos, let's go ahead and go down to number 8. I'm going to talk through number 8 because I think he's a little bit harder. That's why I was like, if I'm going to go over one, let's go over number 8. And then we should have... What time did we get out? Okay, good. I was thinking 37, but I get all confused. Let's talk through this really quickly. Guys, do you have a table? Yes. What's going to go on list 1?
Speed.
Yep. This one, x will be speed. Keep that in your mind for the rest of the problem. X is speed, not that. Y, or list 2, is going to be stopping distance in feet. What's A saying to do? Plug in the table, run the regression, write down the equation, rounding to the 1,000, 3 decimal places. Letter B, when it says superimpose, what does it say to do? Tell me in graphing calculator language, how would you follow that direction? How? Go to your y equals. There we go. Go to your y equals, plug in the equation, graph it. But what, if you're superimposing, that means you have the regression on top of the scatter plot. What else do you have to turn on? Stat plot 1. So in the y equals, you could go up and select. All of this is in your handbook. So you would turn on the stat plot. You would plug in the y equals to the equation. Or sorry, into the y equals. Plug in the equation into the y equals. I said that backwards. What Zoom could help you find it if it was hard to find? Zoom stat. Stat says I'll consider the table too. Zoom fit only looks at y equals. Letter C. Why is the answer in feet? Good, because you were finding distance, and distance was the y, and what they give you? Speed, so they gave you x. Does that make sense? They gave us the x, plug it in, find the y. Are you using the calculator for that? You might just be plugging in on the home screen, right? Now what's going on here? So you use the equation, right? The regression is the equation. To predict, what are you finding?
Speed of the car.
What variable is that in my equation? The x. People can back, it's okay. Find the x if the, who's 300?
Y.
Plug it in, plug it in. Okay, so you notice that I put labels on it? You do that too, otherwise I might lose points on the quiz. Okay. Take away the might, you will. Not a lot, but enough. You don't want to lose points. Who wants to lose points? Ready, set, you guys. What questions do you have? Oh, you didn't take pictures of that one? Sorry.
No.
Do you guys want to take pictures?
Yeah.
I apologize. I thought that you would have your phones out. Why do you think I am totally okay and even encourage you to take a picture if you haven't done the problem yet? What do I not want you doing? Having a pencil out and writing things down. Lost the right person. Use your pen now. I don't want you having a pencil out because you didn't do anything to get that. You just stole it. You're faking me out, right? Why don't I just want you to write it all in pen and be like, da-da-da, here you go. It doesn't show any growth either, right? Okay, so the idea is use the pen, and that's what I said at the beginning of class. Any problems that you have worked on, that you have done, use the pen to grade. And then I said start taking pictures. Cool. Now, does anybody have any questions on calculator worksheet number 2? On what it was asking or on the answers that you graded and you're not sure what the question was doing, what the calculator is doing, things like that? A few? We'll just start over here on the far right. And Alan, what do you got?
For 6A, I plugged it into the equation,
Okay.
but I got it completely wrong.
Okay, and you have the exact same equation as me?
Yeah. Like, I got the equation, but I
Do you have
plugged
it in
it
your
in.
calculator?
I had it up here.
AJ, what was your question, Dave?
I was wondering how, on number 8, how you get the answer.
Did anybody else get a different answer for 6A? Meaning, I'm plugging it in. I don't see a mistake in what you did.
Like, I triple checked.
Yeah. Did anybody in the entire class get 431.459?
Where?
on 6A. Y equals.
Yeah.
I got 55.3.
We all got that. Did anybody get 53.88?
Yes.
Oh, I did that the
I
first
got
time.
53.8.
All right.
I got
What was I doing?
Yeah, Joyce.
So then when I tried the problem again while we were.
I tried to do yesterday in honors pre-calc, I just forgot what it was. I think that might have been it. Hold on, pause. I just want to take an answer and change it. They don't tell us about how the values stand for anything weird. X is 21, it's totally in line. Nothing like the thousands thing from up above. Yeah? 53.88.
How do you get 10.58 for B?
Set y equal to 10? Ah, this is a great question. Okay. If you follow what I said earlier about plugging in, well, plugging in x is easy, right, guys? I mean, obviously I have issues, but plugging in x is supposed to be easy. True? Plug it in, hit enter, y comes out. What's different when you set y equal to something? You have to solve for x. What's gross about the equation from number 5? The cubic, and I have decimals. I'm not going to do factoring. So how did I use my calculator to solve 6b? Is there something called when the value is in your calculator? Oh. So if you were to throw in this equation of 0.006 x to the power of 3 plus 0.018. I bet I messed up one of my decimals when I did it. That's weird. Minus 0.505 x plus 0.981. Well, it doesn't make much of a difference. But. Okay. You could graph that. I would say if for any reason on the quiz or even in homework, if your window gets weird, just go back to standard. Start over again. Go back to standard. We're trying to ask when the value will be 10. Okay, hold on. Value, that's the y. Y is 10. Isn't this a 10 by 10? Y is 10 up here. Do I see that yet?
No.
Okay, so let's extend our window a little bit. But long story short, I want to figure out when the y is 10. I'm just going to do x max, maybe like, I don't know, 50? I know. I'm just showing the idea of it doesn't really matter what you do as long as, oh, that definitely goes through 10. Now question, if I was to hit second trace, there is a value problem, right? Value. What's the dilemma about the value? What's it saying that it wants? And what do we have? Okay, well that didn't work. All right, so hold on, go back to your graph. Where is there a place in your calculator where you can fill in y equals? Go to y equals. What? Yeah, and just write 10 as y2. Y equals 10. What are you going to be finding? The intersection. Does that make sense? X equals is the value function. Y equals, there is a cool way to do it. You just have to kind of, now you might have to go a little bit higher than 10. I didn't think about that. Maybe like 15. But then you're going to go ahead and find second trace. Intersect, I think, is number 5. Okay, come on. Catch up. Nope. Second trace, number 5. You guys remember how you can do first curve? Yep, that guy. Second curve? Yep, that guy. And then guess, I don't know, somewhere over there. 10 point. What? You guys just put the, well, A was wrong. It makes sense B could be wrong too. I could have plugged in the wrong equation. Are you guys doing it with me? Are you the same answer? Yeah. Cool. Let's change number 6. I must have gotten the old version's answer key. I found it a couple days ago. Wasn't the correct version. Oh, I went to window itself. I manually changed the X max, so I wanted to go more right. So I think it was a 10, I just went to 50, 20. And then I changed the Y max, 'cause since I'm trying to find 10, I went a little higher. I was like, Y max. Does it make sense why I did that? Any other questions you guys have on the worksheet? We have a few minutes, you can use me.
Going back to my original question, how you get 8B.
E?
B. How did you get B?
Ooh, same thing. Because look at what it's saying. It's saying y is equal to 300. I graphed this as y2. I zoomed until I could see it, and I found my intersection. So yeah, it was great that we just answered 6B, because it's the same thing for 8B. Whenever you have a y, you can graph it as another y equals. You have your regression and your y equals. You just want to find the intersection, play with your window. Play with your window.
I'm having trouble with 7C.
That's the other scatter plot one, right?
Yes.
About the age
Yes.
of the little girl or something. The girls.
Doesn't that mean you show up?
Oh, interpret. Okay. I don't think there's an interpret on the quiz, just to make everyone be like, it's going to be like plugging and chugging using your calculator. It's going to be similar in the sense of, I'm not just going to say, what's something the handbook did? I'm not going to ask you to explain what you're doing in your calculator. That's not what I'm asking you. I'm going to ask questions that make you use your calculator and know how to use it. Does that make sense? Okay. So there might be some application ones sort of like this, but nothing with interpreting. That's okay. But when it does say interpret, you have to think rise over run, which is a review topic that we haven't specifically reviewed, but change in y over change in x. So think, who are the y's? Pounds. Who are the, or what are the x's? Months. So ultimately it's going to be the change in pounds over the change in months. So I literally took the definition of slope, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I asked myself, what are the y's being labeled in? Pounds. Over x's, where the x is being labeled in? Months. I was just looking to get pounds per month. That's enough. Anything else? What are you guys going to do if you need this answer key to study from, not to cheat? This weekend? Email me. Unless you already have pictures of 7 and 8. I'm going to go ahead and scroll back. Just in case a few of you, since you have your phones already, it would save you an email. I know some of you got stuck early on, so I'll come back to the first page also. If you want a picture of 1 through 6, you can grab one last one. You should have already got a picture of 7 and 8, so grab a picture of 1 through 6. There we go. So guys, think to the future. It's helpful to have answers to make sure you can make it match before the quiz, okay? Use them wisely. Alright, well kids, save the calculator this weekend. I will see you on Monday. If you have anything signed to give me, gracias. Bring your books again on Monday, because since I'm not going to see a couple classes today, I'll try to require you to send me that about this. So I'm going to check book numbers on Monday.
哇，你这换课啊！我现在可以随便换课，你知道吗？换成啥？你看我现在可以随便换，我7节课可以随便调。
Forms online, you guys, let us
只要我能排得进去，他说我随便调。对，他给了我一张。
Wait, whose pen is this? Wait, dang it.
What happened? I don't know, like,
Yeah, there's that. There's also, you know, there's a Precalc tab. There's also
Three. They're all online.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
did you guys tonight?
We're going after.
Huh?
We're going after Kennedy.
You guys are going to Kennedy?
Why not? Let's see Kennedy and say that.
Football talk already, huh?
Yeah.
I had a question on worksheet number 2. I kept on getting the same answer over and over again.